Good evening and welcome. I call to order the September 5, 2017 work session of Swarthmore Borough Council. Mr. Schmucky will not be with us tonight. Mr. Murphy may be with us tonight, depending upon how long our meeting goes. The quorum is present. We would welcome any public comment from anyone who wishes to address us. Please come to the microphone, tell us your name clearly into the microphone, your street address, and share with us what you have to say.
Hi, thank you. My name is Robert Small, and we live at 305 Rutgers Avenue. We have a question about the pending road work at the intersection of Rutgers and Yale. We have learned that PennDOT sent back the review for the ADA curb ramp on August 17th to Marino Construction, whom we understand is the contractor for Swarthmore Borough. Could you tell us what the next step is?
The borough manager will do.
I believe I answered this question when you called the office. The only curb cuts that have been approved are the ones that have been installed on College Avenue. We have not received final approval on the other curb cuts.
Okay, that's not what PennDOT told me.
That's fine, but that's what, if you come in, I'll be happy to share the correspondence that we have. Yeah, they're not approved yet. The contractor would be taking a huge liability without the student's plans.
Mr. Small, let me assure you, the council is every bit as anxious as you are to get these outstanding projects begun and completed at the earliest possible time. There's nobody. Do you have any public comment? No? We only have two people. Those folks in video land don't know that they're only, other than the esteemed reporter for the Swarthmorian, we have only two members of the public here tonight. So we will move on to the president's part of the agenda. I would note that an order has been received dated August 31st, 2017 from the Court of Common Pleas of Delaware County, Judge Spiros Angelos presiding, affirming the decision of Swarthmore Borough Council dated filed June 4, 2017, granting the accommodation petition or application of Hemstraught Foundation with respect to the premises at the intersection or corner of Swarthmore Avenue, of Chester Road and Harvard Avenue. The court found that council committed no abuse of its discretion nor error of law, and that the action taken by council was fully supported by substantial evidence. I would just note, of course, those who feel themselves aggrieved by this order have a right to take a further appeal to the Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania, and only time will tell whether they will do that. But that having been said, I would hope that if in fact this is the final act of this particular little play, that those who felt themselves aggrieved by council's decision and Headstrong's application will, going forward, find a way and see themselves in a position, being in a position, that they can make a positive contribution to the lives of some young people who find themselves as their neighbor for short periods of time receiving cancer treatment. I think there will certainly be occasions when, as individuals, they will be in a position to make such a contribution, and I hope they do it. Environment Committee, Laura.
Sure. I have two things. One is that, as you know, the Corpus plan for the 4 municipalities is just about ready. And just in review, it is going to recommend the preservation of open space, and specifically certain open spaces and all kinds of specific things like connecting trails and communities and all that. And so one thing that we will need to do is figure out how to get funding to preserve our open space as much as possible, and specifically in our town, Henderson Field and it's Cades, right? Is that the other? Yeah.
Rutgers Avenue.
Yeah, the Rutgers Avenue Woods, and that's near Cades. So to that end, there's a group called the Trust for Public Land, and Tim has been talking to Aurora, and Aurora Wenslade is on EAC, and the EAC has agreed that a very good thing to do would be to talk to the Trust for Public Land on how to get some funding and how to move forward. And they and Tim is going to meet with them and someone from the William Penn Foundation. Is that correct?
I'm not invited to the meeting, but they have.
Oh, okay. All right.
What their process involves is a research at the beginning. They do a research phase, where they look at the borough and look at what's available and how it kind of works. So with them, they have a meeting coming up with the William Penn Foundation. William Penn has told them that they will fund these sorts of research projects for various municipalities in Pennsylvania to look at open space. So the meeting is between William Penn
and the Trust for Public Land. Okay, got it.
And then what they would like from us is a letter essentially of interest.
Okay, and that's
which
what,
says
that's
we're
the draft that
interested
you
in
had in
doing
the
this.
email. Okay.
And that's the draft I put in the email.
So that's a really exciting avenue to pursue. And that's the end of that item. And then the next one is very local. So the ESC is collecting ideas about Little Crown Creek Park, the chimney, the big chimney, the sort of iconic chimney in that park is kind of crumbling and needs to be taken down. And a lot of people have a lot of opinions about it, mainly that people want a chimney of some sort or a fireplace to be there. I mean, it's a major focal point, and it's a gathering place for a lot of people. A lot of people use that park, and a lot of people use, have bonfires, I guess. So I think the EAC is going to be trying to find a way to solicit, brainstorming to solicit funds to just figure out how to build something new to replace that. And what form that takes, we're not sure yet.
We do anticipate bringing the chimney down in the next
Oh yeah, I mean it's
month or so. Yeah, we have a contractor lined up.
Yeah, it does have to go down. Yeah, and that's it.
Okay, will your committee be meeting this month?
No.
I would say that it's always, of course, open to EAC to, through you, to request an item in next year's budget that to build a fireplace. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a public solicitation of funds for that purpose. Finance Committee?
Yes, a couple things. I think I'll go a little bit out of order here and start with the second part first, which is, should it say 2018 on
Yeah,
that?
I'm sorry,
Okay.
thank you.
So it's a review of the 2018 minimum municipal pension obligations for both of our pension plans, for the uniform, the police, and the non-uniform. And we'll have to we have to actually approve the bottom line number for next week. We would do that as well?
It's actually the top line numbers.
Yeah.
Right, the numbers you'll be approving are $314,000 for the police, $314,970, and $45,401.
Okay, so next week we'll go through the exact approvals, and those approvals of those particular numbers are prior to state aid that we anticipate getting, and so we'll have that next week. But I think more importantly, I wanted to just quickly talk about the actual bottom line numbers and how it impacts our budget, and sort of some of the things that the actuary suggested that we undertake if they make sense, and how that impacts the numbers. For the police plan, it's basically it's a $20,000 increase, and essentially half of that is because of the number of the number that we're going to approve next week is only 10,000 more, but the actual number that we're going to end up paying is 20,000 more than last year because one officer is in drop, so we get credit for how many officers you have, and then we're down an officer for 6 months. So basically, the police one is essentially going as expected, and there aren't any major changes in terms of the the inputs into that obligation. So essentially that one would be rising as far as the borough is concerned, $20,000. As far as, what we approve next week will be $10,000 more than last year. On the other hand, the non-uniform, there's been some changes because of some factual things, which is after talking to the actuary, we basically came to the conclusion that the retirement age is really 62, not 60, just based on people that are there. It's a closed program, as well as the average work lifetime is 7 years, just based on the people that are in it. So those are changes to assumptions that were there before. The other thing that he suggested, because it's a closed plan, and this is typically what happens, and this goes to the first point, and what they're doing in other ones is to amortize the 10 years of deficit. It's 96% funded to get it fully funded over 10 years. So he's suggesting, and that will be a resolution for next week, that changing that to a 10-year modified amortization of the non-uniform pension plan. All those changes have actually, they seem relatively minor, but because it's such a small plan, because it's closed, has caused the actual obligation to drop from, which will be approving potentially next week, is $45,401, and that's down from $89,498 last year. And then ultimately, after state aid, would be $19,151 this for 2018 versus $63,248 versus last time. So altogether, that's sort of the way after state aid. Last year it was $298,000, and this year we're anticipating it being about $273,000. So about $25,000 less based on those inputs from the actuary. So that's really it in a nutshell. I think next week we'll bring up the resolution again to change to the 10-year modified amortization, and also bring the exact numbers for approval for the MMOs pre-state aid. I'll stop there, and I'm glad to take any questions.
If I can, just on the odd chance that somebody actually watches this meeting on video, would you take a moment and just explain what a minimum municipal pension obligation is?
I'll do my best. It is essentially, the actuarial inputs are obviously critical, but there's an expectation of how many people are in the particular pension plan. It has to do with expected wage increases, expected returns of the assets under management. They use mortality. There's a book that actually gives mortality rates. It's going to be different, for instance, for police officers than it is for non-uniform. People are expected to live longer, so they have to factor in all the probabilities of those things, and then that generates a number that we're expected to pay every year, such that the funding will continue to be the same, or gradually get to 100%. So for instance, the police is at 80% funded right now, which is not great. We'd like it to be higher, but relative to other boroughs and townships our size, it's not that out of the ordinary. And then, as I mentioned before, the non-uniform is at 96%, so much better funded, and that one's closed. That's a different, there's not new people coming into it.
So this
I don't know if that's a great explanation, but
this is a state mandated obligation.
Yes.
We have,
Yes.
the ultimate goal of which imposed on all municipalities to ensure that when people retire, there's money in the till to pay them.
yes, and obviously this is the way to do it, such that it's a steady payment to it every year, as opposed to big, huge amounts that you can't forecast. So obviously actuaries don't know everything, but they can at least give us a good idea.
And the legal requirement is that you, in September, read it into your minutes so that it is in council's mind for budget season, and then they can fund it in the budget.
So this one is already in, 2017 is already in 2017's budget. This will be for 2018 for next year.
And there was a point, I don't know, Jane would remember better than me, I was on council at the time, and David probably was as well, when the burden of making our MMO was considerable and had a significant impact on at least one annual budget being set. So by those standards, we're in a good position.
Right, and there is, we've discussed it in the pension committee, this is going a little bit further, but we could increase the allocations, but one of the things that we're sensitive of is that since really it's a stock and bond assets or what we invested. The stock market has been up for 8.5 years, and the bond market's been quite strong for that period. We're sensitive to the fact that we don't want to be adding money when, at high prices.
Right.
So there could be opportunities down, as the point is that we're mindful that down the road there could be opportunities to close some of those funding gaps more opportunistically. And it might make sense to increase our contribution. We are allowed to go above what the minimum, since this is the minimum number, we can increase it more, but so
Okay.
those are for, further discussion, for future reference. And then also, in a timely manner, we have our pension committee meeting tomorrow night, if anyone is interested, at 7:30.
In this room?
In this room. So if you're interested in more details about this and want to learn more,
Okay.
please come.
Okay.
And I don't think, because of the budgetary season, we will not be meeting for the finance committee meeting this month, but certainly we will be next month.
Okay.
In September? You're not going to meet in September? Usually I present the preliminary budget.
Okay, so,
to
yeah,
council in
okay.
October.
I'll come back with these specific dates and time next meeting. But, okay, so if we'll have that, then we can do that. Okay.
And then there is the resolution 2017-12?
Yes, that's basically what I mentioned before, which is changing to the 10-year modified amortization for the amount that is underfunded.
Okay.
Basically amortizing that over 10 years for the non-uniform pension plan. And we'll vote on that next week.
Okay.
Is
Got it?
Yes.
Thank you. General Government, Mr. Schmucky, who is chair of that committee, is not with us this evening. Is anybody else who serves on that committee want to make a report on anything? If not, we'll move on.
Not that I can think of now.
Okay, thank you. Planning and zoning.
Thank you. The Planning and Zoning Committee did meet last month on August 24th, and we were tasked by you with discussing whether to recommend that council take a position on the matter that's the application that's coming before the zoning hearing board on Tuesday, September 26th. This is the one where, among many things, the issue that I think you were interested in had to do with whether or not variance should be granted to rent out the accessory dwelling.
Right.
We did talk about it at the meeting, and after some discussion, we decided to recommend the council not take a position on
Right.
this one. And if I could just go into a little bit of detail, because obviously I don't want to talk about the merits of the thing, but this has its own peculiar set of facts. We didn't think that this one was the one to take a position on, because it just does have its own set of facts with a letter in the file from a previous solicitor for the borough that talked to this particular situation. So it seemed like one that the zoning hearing board should evaluate and render a decision on.
Okay, fine. Anything else from your committee?
No, but we will be meeting on September 28th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public safety?
Thank you, David. A couple of items. First of all, we will meet this month, Thursday, September 19th, 7:30 p.m. In lieu of a committee meeting last month, we had our first negotiating session with the police in anticipation of the new collective bargaining agreement that we'll be entering into on January 1st, 2018.
Oh, you don't?
We hope. Yeah, that was a bit of an optimistic statement on my part, but anyway, that's the plan. And we had our first negotiating session, and that process is continuing. The other item on the agenda for Public Safety Committee is consideration of Resolution 2017-10, sale of a 2012 Dodge Charger. This is a police vehicle that will be conveyed to Larry Esposito, 1122 Old North Colony Road, Wallingford, Connecticut, for the price of $4,950 as is, with no guarantees or warranties whatsoever. Normally, we would vote on a resolution at the legislative session, but lest we be overtaken by events, I think that we should go ahead and vote on this resolution this evening. So I hereby move that council adopt resolution number 2017-10.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Not being interested in figuring out what event might potentially overtake us. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Sale is approved. Will he come and get it?
Yes,
Yes.
tomorrow. He wants to come tomorrow.
Okay, well, that would be.
He apparently also is worried about events, so.
That was the event that I was alluding to.
Yes. I've already signed.
Well, that is taking up a parking space right now.
Yes, it is.
You don't free up a parking spot. So. And that's all that I have.
Okay. And you will be meeting this month?
Yes, Thursday, September 19th, 7:30 p.m. in this room.
Okay. Public Works, Mr. Murphy has, I gave him every hope that he might be delayed and never get here before our meeting was over, and it seems perhaps going to happen. Anybody else who sits on that committee have anything to report related to Public Works, Parks, and Recreation?
I could talk more about the chimney, but I don't think we need.
I think we've done a chimney. The chimney is about to be toast. I think it's, so fine. Mayor, any other business to entertain us this evening? Or be entertained by us this evening? Okay, Mayor?
Thank you. Let me start by reminding people that school is open. Careful with kids who are walking to school early in the morning. They're not used to being up that early in the morning, so let's give them a break. This afternoon, Claudia and I had the pleasure of meeting with Mike Blinka, who is the general manager of the co-op. Every Tuesday afternoon at 5 o'clock, he was positioning himself out on the patio and taking all questions and comments and everything else for anybody who wants to come chat with him. I sincerely recommend that people do. He's a very interesting guy, has an interesting take on several things. We even discussed a few recipes, so it was good. Speaking of the co-op, next week is a truckathon, so that's next Friday. It'll be, expect a lot of people in town. It's always a great event. This Thursday is the second to last episode of the Thursday Night Music Series, and it's the Don Jones Band. Don's a local Swarthmore, also an architect, musician type, and good music on Thursday. And that's all I have.
Okay. Any other public comment at this point? Seeing no show of no hands, Borough Manager?
You have, not for adoption tonight, but a resolution to dispose of public records. We have limited space in our storage room in the basement, and so we do like to dispose of records. And court, I guess, state law requires that we let you know exactly what we are getting rid of before we do so. So you'll see there's a compilation on the resolution, and that will be next week.
Okay. Jane was careful enough to reply to an email that I asked about this and sent it only to me, not to everybody else, because when I looked at the proposed resolution, I'm accustomed in the business world and the law firm world to policies being set that act prospectively, and so we just authorized that after a certain period of years, records of certain kinds can be destroyed, and other records of different kinds can be destroyed. And so when I looked at this proposed resolution, it seemed to me that she was seeking approval to destroy records in 2009, 2011, rather than these were records dating from those dates. But she was kind enough to send me back an email, copy to none of you, that she didn't say, well, a nice email that made me understand the reality of the resolution, and I appreciated that, but I thought I should confess here tonight. Bob, Solicitor?
Thank you, I do not have anything.
In Mr. Murphy's absence, I would entertain a motion from somebody else that we adjourn tonight.
We adjourn.
Okay.
No.
We are adjourned.